When I was a young manager leading my first meeting, I thought I had it all figured out. I spent hours preparing what I thought was the perfect speech. I walked in, stood tall, delivered it word for word, and lost the room in 5 minutes flat. Nobody engaged, nobody responded. I might as well have been talking to a wall. And that day, I learned something important. Leading a discussion isn't about showing off what you know. It's about drawing others in. It's about listening, guiding, and making space for real conversation. And you know what it reminds me of? Tying a bow tie. You can't just yank it into place and hope it stays put. It takes balance. Pull a little here, loosen a little there, adjust, check the mirror. Same with guiding a conversation. You don't bulldoze your way through. You guide it with questions. Adjust based on who's in the room, and always check to see if everyone is still with you. So if you've ever felt unsure about leading a meeting in English, don't worry, you're in the right place. And stick around, because today we're diving into the secret skills that make discussion leaders stand out. And if you have a question about leading discussions in English, drop it in the chat now. I'll answer a few live at the end of the show before my next class. So, let me tell you about Michelle. Michelle was a bright team leader at an international company, but in group discussions, she really struggled. She either talked too much or not enough. And her international teammates didn't always follow her ideas, and meetings felt chaotic. One day she told me, "I want people to listen when I speak and feel heard when they speak." So we worked on a few key English phrases and techniques, and within a month, she wasn't just leading meetings, she was leading conversations, drawing people in, keeping things on track, and making everyone feel like a real team. So, what changed? It wasn't about speaking more, it was about speaking better and listening smarter. And if you've ever been in a group meeting and thought, I hope they don't ask me to lead this meeting, you're not alone. Leading a discussion in English doesn't mean having all the answers. It means knowing how to guide people, and you can absolutely learn to do it. The biggest mistake I see is people think leading means controlling. That it's their job to talk the most, to give the final word, or make sure everyone agrees with them. But real leadership in conversation is about guiding. Take Michelle, for example. Early on, she felt she had to prove herself by dominating the conversation. But all she did was shut people down. When she switched to asking open questions and inviting others to share, her team actually started listening and engaging. And so she'd ask things like, "What do you think is missing here?" Or, "Can someone share a different view on this?" That simple shift turned her meetings from a one-woman show into true discussions. Leadership in conversation is about asking thoughtful questions, connecting people's ideas, and making sure everyone has a voice. All right? So you can do it too. Try openers like, "Let's get started. Today we're discussing," whatever the topic is. Or you could say, "To begin, I'd like to hear your thoughts on," and then name a topic. Or, "Let's go around and share our first impressions." This will help you keep your meetings on schedule and on task, but also ensures everyone gets a voice. All right. Now, you want to make sure you keep the conversation moving. As the conversation moves forward, your job is to keep it flowing. You don't need all the ideas. You just help others to share theirs. That's one of the keys of leadership. It's not about what you know. It's about knowing what everyone else knows. So Michelle noticed that after asking better openers, her team started responding. And they sometimes would pause, unsure of what to say. So instead of rushing in, she would ask something like, can you ask, or can you say a little more about that? Or, oh, that's interesting. Can you give an example? Follow-up questions help ideas unfold naturally. So you can try asking, can you say more about that? What do others think about this point? Or let's explore that idea a bit further. Those are some really useful phrases to remember. All right. I want you to remember that silence doesn't mean someone has nothing to say. They may just be waiting for a moment to jump in or for someone to ask. Michelle told me about one of her teammates, Aiko. She rarely spoke in meetings. And instead of assuming she had nothing to contribute, Michelle asked Aiko, what's your view on this? Aiko's answer shifted the entire conversation. And you can do the same thing. Listen actively. Invite people to speak. You could say, I'd love to hear your perspective, Aiko or Jim. You could say, what's your experience with this, Steve or Tom or whoever you're talking to? Let's make sure everyone has a chance to speak. Those are all very powerful phrases for this. All right. Now, sometimes enthusiasm, especially as you get your people talking more often, enthusiasm leads the group off topic. That's okay, but part of your job as the leader is to gently steer them back on track. Michelle told me about a time she noticed her team was veering into a passionate debate that wasn't relevant. And so she said, that's really interesting. And I think we should explore it later. But for now, let's refocus our main goal. And her team appreciated that. It brings everyone back to balance. So you can use that same expression. Oh, that's interesting. But let's come back to the main question. Or I think we may be getting off track. Let's refocus. And finally, let's return to our goal for this discussion. Remember, your job is to keep everyone on track. So, what's the big idea? Leading a discussion is about helping others to shine. It's about creating a space where everyone feels like their input matters. When you do that, people start to trust you. They listen more closely, they speak more freely, and you become the kind of leader who lifts the whole team. And these are not just English skills. These are human skills. They work in any language. But in English, they show something extra. They show confidence, empathy, and professionalism. Now, if you've got a question about how to lead a discussion, drop it in the chat right now. Or even if you have a question about how to use one of these phrases, drop that in there as well. Or any other question. It's okay. I'll answer a few right after the Mastery Minute. Okay? So, here is your challenge for the day. Use one of today's phrases in your next team meeting or study group or any kind of group chat. Even just saying, let's hear from everyone, can make a big difference. And if this talk has helped you, give it a like and subscribe, and check out the full article at allaboutenglishmastery.com. Sign up for the newsletter too. It's full of practical English tools you can use right away. Also, there's a link in the chat for you to click directly to that original article. And now, it's my favorite time. It's time for the Mastery Minute. The Mastery Minute. Let's go. So, today's phrase is read the room. Read the room. A few years ago, I sat through a keynote speech at a conference in Singapore. It was a gas conference. And the speaker came in and he had his jokes. He had the slides. He had the whole package. But no one laughed. No one nodded. Why? Well, just before he walked on stage, the audience had learned a major project was being canceled. So the mood was really tense. But he didn't notice. He kept joking and pushing ahead, totally disconnected. What that means is he did not read the room. Now, imagine if he had started with, I know that this has been a tough day. Let's take a moment and then we'll dive in together. Instant connection, right? That's leadership. Reading the room means noticing the vibe, the feeling, body language, silence, energy, and then adjusting. Do that and people will follow your lead. So remember, great leaders don't just talk, they read the room. Okay, and have you ever asked a question in English and got nothing back? Just blank stares? Like a zombie? Or awkward silence? In our next episode, Friday night at 9:30 p.m. Korea time, or 8:30 if you're in Taiwan or Hong Kong, we'll uncover the secret to asking better questions. The kind that actually spark conversation, build connection, and show confidence. So whether you're networking, leading, or just trying to make friends in English, you'll want to be here for this episode. And that is a wrap. Thanks for joining me today on 15-Minute Mastery. I hope you picked up a few new tools for your toolbox to lead your next discussion with clarity and confidence. Now, I'm going to open the floor. If you have got a question, drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'll stick around for a few minutes to answer live. All right. And if you don't have any questions, well, then I guess I'll see you on Friday. I'm looking in the chat and, excuse me. Nice to see you, excuse me. And you know all about it? Read the room. Read the room. Can you tell me a time, just write it in the chat, when you didn't read the room properly? You didn't know, or maybe you just failed at reading the room. That's what I did at the very beginning when I talked about my first meeting that I was leading. I didn't know how to read the room. So one of the things, we'll talk about this in another presentation or another discussion, when you are giving a presentation of any kind, it's always important to look and get to know who your audience is before you even get to the point of giving your speech. Who are you talking to? And then on top of getting to know your audience, you've really got to do your best to get to know what they're interested in, what they are feeling in that moment. So stay on top of the news, stay on top of what's happening in that moment, and it will help you go a long, long way. So, all right. It's so quiet tonight. Nobody has questions. I must be the best teacher in the world, because If you're not asking questions, then you're not really getting to know. Here's one. It's not easy to read the room with a whole bunch of people around. That's true. That's true. But if everyone is there at the place for the same purpose, like a presentation or a conference or something like that, people are more mindful. Obviously, everyone has their own personality. But when people are coming to see you speak, then it's a little bit easier to understand the vibe of the room. So if it's just a crowded room with a lot of people milling around who are not really there for the same thing, yeah, of course, it's hard to read the room. But when we're talking about reading the room, we're talking about when people have a joint purpose. They're there for the reason, or for the same reason, basically. It's a little bit easier that way. So, all right, well, if I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to say good night and go get ready for my next class. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all again on Friday.